of people. We have the higher class, we have the lower class, middle class, working class, all that. And to make all these people into one little division.
Equal.
Yeah.
Everything is equal under that system. Is that what
wouldn't necessarily work, because while all men are equal, all their possessions and some skills and et cetera are not equal. And so the Soviet Union tried to just take away all personal properties. You know, you were just blank, basically. You were nothing but, me and you were the same. Even though we're quite different people, in their eyes, we're the same. We're not individual. And something like that isn't really a smart idea to do for a country, because people are individuals. And to try to classify them into one small division doesn't really make sense, because you cannot classify all people into one thing. Just like if I go into a building and I say everyone in here is middle class, that wouldn't be true, because everywhere you go, you'll have lower class, higher class, middle class, things like that.
Are you saying that even though there's an attempt to make everybody equal, that all individuals are not the same, and therefore no matter what kind of system you develop, you have to make arrangements for those differences within America, within individuals? Is that what we're saying? Yeah,
and some lesser known political parties say that, you know, people are equal, but we're different. And that's true. No man is worth more than the other, yet we just have different skills. No, we're not the same. Like me and you, we both deserve the same things, deserve the same treatment, but we're not the same. We're not on the same levels. And that's kind of what the Soviet Union wanted to do to all the Russian people. Like the capital city for the Soviet Union was Moscow, and that was also the largest city. And this was Russia. The biggest country in the Soviet Union was Russia. And so I'm kind of focusing in on Russia because of the Russian Revolution. And so in making all those people the same, it didn't really work out. And so, but here's a surprising fact. After 1917, once the revolution started, once it ended, this was 1922 at this point. That's when the Soviet Union really came into power and was classified as an actual party. The Soviet Union did not end until 1991, July of 1991. So this actually lasted, and it was incorporated for the Russian people. And so 1991 was about 20-ish years ago. This really went on for a long time, and people don't see that. They think of, when they hear Soviet Union, they think of, oh, this was back during Lenin and the Tsarist autocracy. This was very close to 2017. This is 2017. That was not a long time ago. And so it's very strange to look at it that way, because the Soviet Union was still coming into power when we had like modern televisions and stuff like that. It's very strange to think about.
You know, Lana, thinking about the Soviet Union and some of the things that you've already said about equality of opportunity and et cetera, I think that you can look at the Constitution of the United States of America and say in reality, these are some of the things that are promised in the United States Constitution. Now, what made Russia different from the United States?
Well, see, the United States, the Constitution says, you know, all people are equal and all this and that. That's not really how America treats their citizens, or the United States. You could say that all people are equal and all people get equal chances. That's not really what happens, because, and I feel like in the Constitution, things like that were promised so that we could kind of instill it in the country, and maybe like over time we'd start to believe it. But that has yet to happen, because we still have hate crimes and hate groups and KKK and things like that. And so up until we actually start to instill the things that the Constitution says, like black people have the right to vote, but there are still voting centers in predominantly black cities that get burned down because black people are trying to vote. And so once the United States starts to actually abide by I mean, we abide by it, but the government does, at least. The citizens haven't really clicked yet, because, you know, black people we have our rights now. Once the Constitution went through, you know, we had people like Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks fight for our rights. We have rights. We can do whatever at this point, but citizens still try to make it hard for us to do whatever. And that's kind of like Russia. you have the right to, but you won't really be able to.
Alana, over these last few seconds that we have here, and perhaps we might be able to pick this up during the last segment, that when we talk about equality and rights and political rights and et cetera, we're essentially saying that both those things could apply to the United States as well as Russia. But in a real sense, I think that there's a constitution in the United States that promises this, the 13th, 14th, and the 15th Amendment. And I think that in a real sense, Russia, the United States has moved closer toward the implementation and the recognition of these rights more so than Russia or the Soviet Union. And of course, we're going to take our second commercial break, and we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break.
It's habit. It's like, okay, okay. No, because I get tongue tied. And
yeah. Well, I'm just tie your tongue up and do like I do with these dentures. You talk about trying to talk with those things. That's really,
okay, I get it.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But you're doing excellent. You're doing really well. Now, what you want to talk about now?
I'm gonna go back in on rights and stuff, and then compare, like, just comparisons and stuff.
Okay, I'm gonna let you just go and start talking about what you think you know about. And you're doing well. This is some of the information. This is good information, and it gives us. But I just wanted to make that comparison because we believe, all of us believe in the equality of man. That's what, as a matter of fact, the Soviet Union is built upon communism, and communism essentially is common. Everybody ought to share everything, property, and et cetera, and et cetera. And but we. Thank you and welcome back to the final segment of the show for today. We're talking to Alana McLaughlin, and she's given us some information in reference to the Russian Revolution. Alana, let's see if we might be able to pick up where we left off during the second segment to give you an opportunity to perhaps look at the Russian Revolution, the promise of equality as promised in communism, and then perhaps say something in reference to the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths and et cetera, that kind of thing. Talk about it from that perspective.
Now, in the last segment, we compared the Soviet Union to how the United States is, and we talked about how the things that they implemented in Russia from 1922 to 1991 wouldn't really work in the United States. And here's another reason for that. Communism, which was very prevalent in Russia and, Moscow, was, it was based on the word community, communism, community, which is all men are equal, all men should share, things like that. Now, America, we have the 14th, 15th, and 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments that basically talk about African American rights, because there wasn't really a time where Caucasians, their rights were taken away. It was basically black people. And so, in talking about communism and all that, they wanted other people to be equal and share. We couldn't implement that in America because we went through slavery for 300 years. People weren't equal for 300 years, and only after slavery did we start to think about, oh, well, can black people vote? Can black people, have basic human rights? Can we give those back to them? And eventually those were given back to us due to the Constitution. But as I said in the last segment, United States citizens are known for not really implementing those Constitution-like rights. Like, for instance, I mentioned how African Americans do have the right to go vote, but you'll still hear plenty of stories about predominantly black voting centers getting burned down because of white supremacists don't want black people voting. And it makes you think, are we back in the 1800s where black people like couldn't walk outside without issues from white people, or just from any other race that felt that they were above African Americans due to the color of our skin? And that's something that really makes you think, you know, what if America tried to implement something like that? Would we have not gone through slavery? Would the Constitution be written like how it is? Would women have rights? Because, you know, women got rights, even, and that's crazy. Well, it's not crazy that women got rights. It's crazy that women had to be given rights. It's crazy how men think that they're above women just because of maybe stature.
They are men.
Because they're men. And it's crazy how white people or other races think they're above African Americans because they're white. And so that's a lot of things that happen in Russia. If you try to compare them to the United States, it wouldn't really fit, like a puzzle. It wouldn't fit together because it wouldn't work. America wouldn't go for something like that. If we got a president and he tried to instill communism and all that, everybody would be like, equal. I'm not equal to this black person, or I'm not equal to this woman or child. You know, it would be lots of issues.
Let's end this, Lana, over the next 6 minutes by taking thought of something that I learned quite early in college, and that was the Declaration of Independence.